Hello everyone and welcome to this tip on how to create a data definition in Robot Monitor. Let's get started. Quick reminder about what Robot Monitor is. Robot Monitor is a monitoring and alerting tool for IBM also any other operating system that can be loaded onto a power server. So we're talking about AIX, VIOS or VIOS, as well as Linux. Today we're going to be pretty much focused on IBM. Robot Monitor is known as being highly configurable, and that's really what we want to get to the bottom of today is how to configure a new monitor or what we call a data definition in Robot Monitor. So if you've got the Robot Monitor graphical interface in front of you, and you are properly authorized, you'll see a configuration data definitions option in the left-hand menu. There's a big green button that says monitor something new. That's one way to create a new monitor. Another way is if you're in a system view, you can bring down the item selection option, and there's once again a big green button there under item selection. Okay, next question is what can you monitor? A lot of different options for monitoring in this product. The built-in monitors are not configurable. They're built in. They are monitoring what they monitor, CPU, AIX, and so forth. You can, or auxiliary storage. You can, however, modify thresholds, but that's really not what we're getting at today. Today we're talking about creating a new monitor or a new data definition. So that's what you see here in the other four columns. You'll see in the item selection, if you have configured any of these monitors, a plus sign. And that means you've got some customized monitoring going on in one of these categories. So these are all related to IBM. If you have Mimics on IBM, you'll see we have some customizable monitors there. Likewise, AIX or VIOS, as well as Linux. So there's a lot of customization that you can do. And we're just going to take a look at a couple simple examples just to get you started. So just for instance, let's say that I wanted to add up all the storage used in my Robot HA library. We have an object size monitor. And with that particular monitor, you could say, I want to look at a particular library. I want to look at certain objects in that library. In this case, I'm doing star all, but you could certainly say, I want to monitor all objects that start with RBT and of an object type star file or star journal receiver or. All right, so you have options there as to what you want to add up, so to speak, in terms of the total size being used. You could even look at a single object if you wanted to. Over here on the right-hand side, if you do have multiple systems in your environment, you can check which systems that you want to run this monitor over, or you can check the All Systems button, and immediately we'll start collecting that data from all systems. Some of the data definitions also have a collection frequency box. By default, we collect this data from your system or systems every 30 seconds. That is a collection frequency of 1. If you think that's too often, you don't need to collect it that often. You could say, for instance, I want to use a collection frequency of 10. That would be once every 5 minutes, or once every 10th 30-second collection, we're going to collect this data from your systems. Okay, let's take a look at a live demonstration. First of all, if you look at the user guide for Robot Monitor, this happens to be the 15.03 version of Robot Monitor. Starting on page 273, you will see data types and parameters. And we describe all of the various data definitions or data types that you can create in Robot Monitor and tell you exactly what the monitor does and the parameters that are available on that particular data definition. And if I interchange data definition and monitor, they will mean the same thing in this particular demonstration. So figuring out what you want to monitor is important before you start going about creating things. Let's take a look at an example. I'm going to use the work subsystem command, and I've got a subsystem called banking running on this particular partition. And inside my banking subsystem, I've got some jobs. A couple things I want to do. I want to make sure that these jobs are active. I want to make sure the subsystem is active. And I'm also curious how much CPU that this banking subsystem is taking. So I'd like to start measuring that. I want to get a baseline. So let's go about setting that up. So one way to create a new data definition is under Configuration, Data Definitions, Plus. And it's here where I can go about searching through all the various monitor types or data definition types. And it's a long list. So we've got some help for you, and that's using this filter option. So for instance, if I'm interested in looking at the status of something, I'll pick job status. And here I can do things like subsystem status. I could also do job status. So I think that's a good place to start. Let's actually start with subsystem status. So when monitoring a subsystem, first of all, when setting this up, there is a prompting option. All right, prompting in Robot Monitor means I can right-click on a parameter and it will show me everything on the prompted system listed down here, and I can prompt from any system. All right, so I'm right-clicking on the subsystem library, and what that refers to is if I do an option 5 on my subsystem in the work subsystem command, we're looking at this particular library, Thomas K. All right, so I can't search for the subsystem unless I have a subsystem library, and I'm just going to type it in this case. You can either prompt or you can just type it in. Now if I right click, here's all the subsystems that are in that library, and of course I'm looking for banking. And I'm not going to monitor all systems for this. I'm going to monitor my Wisdom system and my Academy system because that's where that subsystem and those jobs live. All right, let's save that. Now, what did I just create? If I type banking in my search bar, it says, well, there's my banking status subsystem monitor. Next, I'm going to monitor all those jobs that are running in the subsystem. Once again, monitor something new. It remembers where I last was. And now I'm going to take job status. And I could right-click on my subsystem and select banking. Now I'm going to say I want to monitor multiple items, and it's prompting all of the jobs that are running in that subsystem because I entered the subsystem name. If I didn't enter the subsystem name and I right-clicked on job name, it would show me every job that's running on the system. So with this, I could pick exactly what I want to monitor. I could also right-click and say I just want everything. And I'm going to say OK. Okay, now it says multiple. Once again, I'm going to say I want this on Able and Wisdom. When I click OK, what's going to happen is Robot Monitor is going to create a data definition for each one of those items that I selected. Finally, I'm going to click Monitor Something New again, and this time I want performance-related metrics, and I'm going to pick CPU usage. I might be interested in disk I/O, I might be interested in faulting rates, and so forth, temporary storage possibly, but really I'm just interested in CPU usage at this time. I want the banking subsystem. Notice when you right-click and prompt, it remembers what you previously had chosen. And once again, we'll pick Academy and Wisdom. Now, what happens when you create the monitor? For instance, if I right-click on Subsystem Banking, go to Properties, first of all, it populated what we call the data description with some default information. All right, for instance, I've got a short description and a long description. Also, I've got some default thresholds that were filled in. and that'll say at the top default threshold. So every particular monitor type that you can create in Robot Monitor has a default threshold that will be populated automatically. The thresholds may not actually contain any values, but it's a placeholder that you can populate with values. We've got another tip on creating thresholds. Now let's take a look at what this would look like on a dashboard. So very quickly, I'm going to create a dashboard called Banking. There's my blank slate. I'm going to click on plus. Let's go to Live Elements. And let's go to Monitor Graph. I'm going to call this Banking Status. And I'm going to select all of my job statuses as well as my subsystem status. I'm going to put that into a live widget. First of all, when you select this, you'll notice that it shows up as a vertical bar graph. That doesn't really make a lot of sense in this case. So I would change the widget from a bar graph to a text view. Let's say OK. Okay, so first of all, this widget defaulted to System Academy. If we go back to the properties, you see you can create a widget for a single system. I could also create a group that included my Wisdom and Academy system, or I could say all. In this case, I'm going to right click, I'm going to say copy, and I'm going to create a copy of this widget, and I'm going to change it for my Wisdom system now. All right, there's Wisdom, and there's Academy, and here's Wisdom. So very quickly, that was how you can create a new data definition. As I recommend, look at the user guide first. Think about exactly what you want to monitor and how you want it then presented in a dashboard. If you do want to put a new monitor into a system view, which I highly recommend, especially when you're first creating your system view. This particular system view has a lot of different metrics on it. We won't go into that. But you will see all your custom monitors as well as the built-in monitors in this list. And so just for instance, if I pick subsystem status, there's my banking status. What I can do is drag it into my view someplace, and I'll just drag it here to the end of the list. And once again, it'll show as a vertical bar, but there are ways, for instance, to have your information show up in more of a text view. And that's the subject of yet another tips video that we have. But this is a good way to test a newly created monitor. And finally, there is a Monitor Something New button right here. So if there's something that you've discovered now that you want to monitor, you could create a new monitor type right here. Thanks for watching this robot monitor tip. If you do have any questions about this or any other robot product, please reach out at info@fortra.com. Thanks again. Bye-bye.